Welcome to this tactical briefing on the Battle of Chancellorsville, fought from April 30th to May 6, 1863, in Spotsylvania County, Virginia. Often hailed as General Robert E. Lee's perfect battle, this engagement serves as a masterclass in military strategy. We will examine how a significantly outnumbered Confederate force utilized audacious maneuver, exploited tactical asymmetry, and applied superior command dynamics to fracture and ultimately defeat the Union's Army of the Potomac. Beyond the tactical brilliance, we must also weigh the profound cost of such a victory. Join me as we dissect the movements, decisions, and outcomes that defined this pivotal moment in the American Civil War. To understand the Union's position, we must look at the Intelligence Revolution, led by Major General Joseph Hooker. In early 1863, Hooker established the Bureau of Military Information, BMI. Under Colonel George H. Sharp, this specialized team of roughly 80 analysts and scouts synthesized multi-source intelligence, providing Hooker with a remarkably precise estimate of General Lee's forces. Simultaneously, Hooker overhauled the Army's structure. He abolished ineffective grand divisions, consolidated the cavalry for strategic raids, and improved camp conditions to rebuild morale. These reforms culminated in Hooker's supreme confidence, a bold, hubristic promise that his perfect plans would leave General Lee with no mercy. But could this newfound intelligence and organization withstand the tactical brilliance of his opponent? We turn now to the stark contrast in the order of battle. The Union's Army of the Potomac boasted 134,000 troops, holding a massive numerical advantage over the roughly 60,000 soldiers of Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. Yet, strategic choices fundamentally shifted the balance. While Hooker prioritized an offensive, concentrated posture, Lee's forces were initially dispersed. Crucially, Hooker dispatched his 11,500 cavalrymen on a deep raid, leaving him blind, whereas Lee retained his cavalry for vital reconnaissance. Furthermore, while the Union decentralized its 412 guns, Lee concentrated his 243 artillery pieces into flexible battalions. Ultimately, despite holding a 2-to-1 advantage, Hooker's structural decisions left him tactically isolated at the battle's most critical junctures. By April 30, 1863, Major General Joseph Hooker's operational execution appeared flawless. He initiated a daring double envelopment designed to trap Lee's forces. First, he commanded the 6th Corps under Major General John Sedgwick to pin Lee down at Fredericksburg with aggressive demonstrations. Simultaneously, Hooker led the 5th, 11th, and 12th Corps on a secret march up the Rappahannock River, crossing the Rapidan to strike deep into the Confederate flank and rear. This maneuver successfully concentrated 50,000 Union soldiers at the Chancellorsville Crossroads, situated within the dense, treacherous terrain known as the Wilderness. On paper, the trap was set, but the move into the wilderness would soon pose its own unique, unforeseen challenges. Facing a double envelopment, General Robert E. Lee did the unthinkable. He defied standard military doctrine, which dictated retreat when threatened on both flanks. Instead, Lee chose to stand and fight. Recognizing that the primary threat lay in the wilderness, he audaciously divided his already outnumbered army. He left Major General Jubal Early with a meager force of 10,000 men and 56 cannons to hold off the massive Union presence at Fredericksburg. Meanwhile, Lee personally led the main body west. By marching directly into the dense, tangled thickets of the wilderness, Lee masterfully neutralized Hooker's superior numbers and long-range artillery, setting the stage for a dramatic and unconventional counter-pincer. How would Hooker react to this unexpected aggression? By May 1, the initiative took a tragic turn. Mid-morning, Hooker authorized an eastward advance, hoping to leverage his numerical strength in open terrain. However, by 11:20 a.m., Union columns collided with Stonewall Jackson's aggressive vanguard near Zone Church. Despite a clear opportunity to flank the Confederates via the river road, Hooker suffered a catastrophic loss of nerve. Overestimating enemy strength, he ordered a retreat back into the stifling confines of the wilderness. The fallout was immediate and demoralizing. 2nd Corps Commander Darius Couch famously remarked that Hooker had become a whipped man, throwing away a brilliant operational march for a nest of thickets. The tide was turning, and the Union's bold plan was rapidly unraveling. On May 2, General Robert E. Lee committed an act of extraordinary audacity, shattering the rules of conventional warfare. Faced with a Union force more than twice his size, Lee divided his army not once but twice. While Jubal Early's 10,000 men held the eastern rear at Fredericksburg, Lee left a mere 15,000 soldiers to man a thin, 3-mile skirmish line, a daring bluff designed to feign a massive frontal attack against Hooker. Meanwhile, he sent Stonewall Jackson with 30,000 men on a perilous march to strike the Union rear. It was a massive gamble. Had Hooker realized the ruse and launched a focused frontal assault, Lee's center would have been instantly crushed. The battle now rested on this high-stakes deception. To understand the impending disaster for the Union, we must define the flank in the air. A secure defensive line requires its ends to be anchored by natural barriers like rivers or cliffs. When a flank rests in open terrain, it is, in the air, dangerously exposed to encirclement. On the night of May 1, J.E.B. Stuart's cavalry made a critical discovery. Major General Oliver O. Howe's 11th Corps, forming the Union's extreme right, was completely unanchored along the Orange Turnpike. By marching west and then turning north, the Confederates could strike the Union line from the side and rear, rendering their earthworks useless. The stage was set for a devastating blow, turning the Union's defensive posture into a trap. On May 2, the trap snapped shut with devastating precision. At 8 a.m., Stonewall Jackson began a grueling 12-mile clandestine march through dense woods. By midday, Union scouts spotted the column, but Hooker made a fatal assumption. He believed Lee was retreating. He dispatched Sickles' 3rd Corps to pursue, inadvertently drawing 20,000 troops away from the main line and isolating Howe's 11th Corps. At 5 p.m., the silence of the forest was broken as Jackson's men deployed into a massive, 2-mile-wide battle line. Screaming the rebel yell, they burst from the thickets, catching the unprepared 11th Corps entirely off guard. The Union right was instantly routed, driven back over 2 miles in a chaotic, shattering blow. As night fell on May 2, the Confederate momentum stalled. The dense, dark wilderness caused immense disorganization, and in a desperate push to cut off the Union retreat, General Stonewall Jackson rode forward to reconnoiter. Tragedy struck upon his return. In the pitch darkness, the 18th North Carolina Infantry mistook his party for Union cavalry and unleashed a devastating volley. Jackson was struck 3 times, leading to the amputation of his arm. With his successor, A.P. Hill, also wounded, command of the 2nd Corps unexpectedly fell to J.E.B. Stuart. This friction of war, a tragic case of friendly fire, abruptly removed one of the Confederacy's most aggressive commanders at the height of their tactical success. By dawn on May 3, the battle reached a crescendo of tactical miscalculation. In a move that proved disastrous, Major General Joseph Hooker ordered Sickles to abandon Hazel Grove, the battlefield's dominant high ground, and retreat to the lower position at Fairview. Confederate Artillery Chief E.P. Alexander immediately seized the opportunity, occupying the heights and massing 31 cannons. The result was a brutal lesson in the physics of defeat. Because Hazel Grove overlooked the Union positions, Confederate gunners commanded a clear, plunging line of sight directly into the Federal lines. A savage 5-hour artillery duel ensued, as the Union Army paid a heavy price for surrendering the tactical advantage of the terrain. The trap, already set, was now being methodically closed. The Battle of Chancellorsville reached its tragic conclusion through a study in command contrasts. While J.E.B. Stuart's forces maintained seamless aggression, reuniting their wings in a violent hammer blow against the Union, the Federal command suffered total paralysis. At 9:15 a.m., a Confederate shell struck a pillar at the Chancellor House, leaving Major General Joseph Hooker incapacitated with a severe concussive traumatic brain injury. Dazed and disoriented, Hooker stubbornly refused to relinquish command to his senior subordinate, Darius Couch. This fatal indecision left 30,000 fresh Union reserves idle while their comrades were systematically overwhelmed. Consequently, the Union forces abandoned the Chancellorsville clearing, marking the final unraveling of what began as a perfect plan. The drama shifted to the eastern flank on May 3, where Major General John Sedgwick's 6th Corps achieved a breakthrough, seizing Marye's Heights at Fredericksburg. Unpanicked, General Lee once again demonstrated his daring by dividing his force, He left J.E.B. Stuart to contain Hooker's 70,000-plus men at Chancellorsville while dispatching Lafayette McLaws eastward to confront Sedgwick. The turning point occurred at Salem Church, where McLaws reinforced Cadmus Wilcox's brigade. A fierce counterattack by the 9th Alabama shattered the Union momentum, halting Sedgwick's advance and preventing the Federal forces from threatening Lee's rear. This successful, multi-front gamble effectively neutralized the final Union hope of reversing the tide of the battle. As the curtain falls on this campaign, we witness the final, agonizing chapter. By May 4, Lee had forced Major General John Sedgwick's 6th Corps into a defensive U-shaped pocket, eventually compelling their desperate escape across the river under the cover of darkness. With that flank secured, Lee turned his full attention back to the massive Union force still hunkered down near Chancellorsville. Though a council of Union commanders, including Meade, voted to stand and fight, bolstered by their superior numbers and heavy fortifications, a psychologically shattered Joseph Hooker overruled them. In the pouring rain of May 5–6, the Army of the Potomac withdrew across United States Ford, ceding a victory that, to many, seemed rightfully theirs. We conclude our briefing with the final tally of this engagement. In this perfect battle, General Lee paid a harrowing price. Roughly 13,000 casualties, including the irreplaceable loss of Stonewall Jackson. Conversely, the Union suffered approximately 17,000 casualties. While tactically a brilliant Confederate victory, the long-term strategic implications were profound. Lee's audacity, while successful here, encouraged a dangerous overconfidence that would lead him toward the disaster at Gettysburg just 2 months later. Simultaneously, the Union's failure despite overwhelming resources highlighted deep-seated command and structural issues. Chancellorsville stands as a somber testament to the brutal paradox of the Civil War. Tactical brilliance often came at a cost that eventually rendered victory impossible.